Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Fantasy Fiends Show. I'm your host, Stevie Collier, and I'm honored today to have Andy Peliquin as my co-host. Once again, we are brothers, we are one, and one day we will stitch ourselves together, but that is in the future. Today, we have the honorary guest of Kevin Potter. You might know him as the Dragon Guy, which you would be right. If anything, just go search Kevin Potter on Amazon and you are going to be shocked by the amazing covers. It's not the usual. You'll see what I mean. It's very unique and original. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so you gotta tell us about these covers. I think I asked you before this, but these are hand painted.
Yeah, it's all hand drawn. I believe he does them digitally.
Yeah, digitally.
That really changed a whole lot.
Man, they are really, really cool. Well, we've got an awesome show for you guys today. But first, as always, we have to talk about something cool that's happened to us recently. Andy, you warned Kevin, right? Because I was a little bit late.
I did. I let him know.
Okay. All right. Who wants to go first?
You go first, Stevie. I feel like this week you're going to have something really, really cool for us.
It's funny you should say that. Well, I have no new chapter of Ninja and Fox. I didn't have time, and I was writing it, but I felt that I was rushing, and I was like, that's not why I'm writing this. So I just stopped, and I might even trash whatever I wrote. I'm not 100%. Once I got to a point where I didn't know where I was going, I was like, it's kind of scary territory for this being my masterpiece. Anyway, I'm going to try this weekend very hard. But I do have something really cool, something that I've been looking for a very long time, and that is a signed edition of Goosebumps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wow. So this is one of my favorite covers. I'm going to send these off to Beckett and or PSA or PSI, I think it is, or Beckett to get them finalized. They can check for R.L. Stine, and the one that I'm going to frame right here, they're both first edition, first printing. I found them, and I don't think the person knew what he was getting rid of. And I honestly, it was so bad, I had to tell him because he wanted like $20 for it. And I'm like, I can't just give you $20 for it. By the bottom of my heart, like I would feel dirty, you know. But this is probably the most iconic Goosebumps book. In itself, just first edition is kind of hard, but definitely signed is a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah, and the value of the person's name not being here, just R.L. Stine, not to Anthony from R.L. Stine, that makes it a lot more valuable. So, and the best part is that freaking old book smell. You gotta love that shit. God, I want, like, at my funeral for there to be, like, air blowers that just blows old book stuff on people. you know, like Cinnabon does, you know they've got some shit up there that they're doing. That some wizardry makes you smell it as soon as you go in. Wetzel's pretzels.
You know, I have to wonder how much you just compromised the value of that book by touching it.
I don't know. You know, I'm never going to sell it. It's just for me. R.L. Stine was had the largest impact on me wanting to become a writer. I was part of his book writing fan club. I took his little classes on scholastic.com. This was like when internet was kind of new. This was when Ask Jeeves was a thing. Remember Ask Jeeves?
You're showing your age right now.
Ask Jeeves. God, isn't that crazy? We had Ask Jeeves. Now it's just ask.com. But yeah, and I really like looking at it. So they're neat little things. But that is my good news, which is really cool.
That is pretty cool news. Kevin, do you have something for us?
Well, it's not that cool, but it's something I'm proud of. So I've had a lot going on in my personal life. My daughter's been in the hospital, and there's been just some nasty stuff going on. So I've been in this horrible writing slump for probably months at this point. But over the last couple of weeks, things have calmed down. I've finally been able to get my head back in the game a little bit, and I have almost doubled my word count on this book in the last 2 weeks.
That is awesome.
Nice. How many words are you doing a day right now?
It varies a little bit. My minimum is 2,000. I shoot for more like 5 to 6. My top so far over the last few weeks has been 7,000.
That's awesome.
Not bad at all. And I see Books behind you, are those yours?
Yes.
Can we see one?
Yeah, those are mine.
One is freaking huge.
Yes, this is my epic. It's called Shadow of the Overlord.
Whoa.
If I can center the camera.
Yeah.
Dude.
There we go.
You should
Very
try.
cool.
You should try to find a writing agent or a literary agent for that.
I don't know about that.
I mean, you're not going to make as much money, but it
Right.
looks like something you'd pick up in Barnes and Noble. But yeah, I would definitely, like, if I was walking down, and I'm not just saying this, like the aisle, and I think I would definitely pick that one up. But man, that's great. Is your daughter okay?
Yeah, she's been getting better. We're just about over the hurdle of doing intravenous antibiotics. So hopefully once we finish that, we'll be on the road to recovery and everything will be good.
Well, my prayers go out to you and your family.
You.
Yeah, of course. Andy, last but least.
Okay.
Wordplay.
Okay, some cool news. Our Twitch channel just passed 100 followers, which is awesome. It's a great little first milestone to reach. Very excited about that. We've been getting consistently awesome views on the games. The games have been super, super fun. We're getting Bobby to come back on Monday, which is just the happiest news for me. He's been my favorite guest player so far. No offense to you, Stevie, but
oh, I know I'm number one always.
You're number one in my heart.
Yes.
But it's been a ton of fun being able to do that Monday nights playing the games. Some more good news. I finished the rough draft of Cerberus Book 10, which will be finalized, the first draft done by early next week, so that I can send it off to the beta readers, get done with Book 9 and the edits on Book 8. So I'm still on track to finish Book 12 by the end of the year. It's going to be tight. Like, literally, I'm going to be working till like the last day before Christmas. But I should still be able to get that done in time if all goes well.
I think it was the exact same thing last year.
I think last year there was a little bit more of a cushion. I remember telling my wife, okay, I just finished the last book of the Silent Champions or something. Or no, I was working on a Cerberus book. I told her I just finished writing it, and it's Christmas in like 3 or 4 days, so I don't want to start a new book, but I don't know what to do if I'm not writing. So like I had no idea what to do with myself those last 3 days of work or something. So I think I did some editing, or I planned for other stuff, but it was really weird to not be working on something. A question from the audience: are Kevin's books available in Canada paperback?
Some of them are. The rest we are working on.
Very cool. I'm guessing you can probably just go check out Amazon Canada, search for Kevin Potter, and you'll see which of the books are available.
Absolutely. Just be aware there is another Kevin Potter that publishes on Amazon. He does like technical manuals. It's pretty easy to distinguish. Just throwing that out there.
Does it? I'm looking it up. Yours comes up first, thankfully.
Nice.
But I don't.
It didn't
I don't
used to be that way, so that's a step in the right direction.
For some reason, Chris Fox comes up, but hey, that's a good thing too. But awesome. So we could probably just head right into, unless I'm forgetting something, the topic.
No, straight into the topic.
Yeah, seeing the other for who they truly are.
This idea of the other was something that actually my brother first introduced to me a few years back. He's one of these guys who reads all like literary stuff and super like intellectual in his reading. And he's explained the concept of the other, which is anyone or anything that is sort of foreign to you and your identity and all of that. And so in this case, like, Kevin was the one who suggested this topic, and I loved it because it's like, as humans, whenever we run into, let's say in a fantasy world, an orc or a goblin, right? We immediately think of them as being these, monsters, right? Creatures of evil who are here to hurt us or kill us or whatever it is, right? So having been playing D&D for a few months now, it's like, all right, you see monsters, you attack monsters. But then my dungeon master's been doing this funny thing where after you attack the monster and like just as they're dying, he does like this hilarious thing to humanize them. So in the first episode that we recorded live, we were attacked by like thugs on a dock. And as my barbarian or my berserker character is like chopping them to pieces and they're dying, they're like, oh no, he was 1 week away from retiring in his pension and spending his time with his grandkids. Just like, and it's like, what? And then it killed another one. Oh no, him too. And in this week's episode, we were attacked by this half mermaid, half tortoise creature. And as my character was going to attack him, it was like, I had all these trust issues before. I've just been out of a long-term relationship, and now you attack me and you confirm my trust issues in people, and I'll never trust anybody again. Like it just sort of humanized the monster obviously in a humorous way. But then when you read certain books, for example, The Grey Bastards by Jonathan French, right, where the orcs are the main characters, or Orconomics, right, by J. Zachary Pike.
That's a good one. Where
you see sort of the other side of things. It was this interesting exploration of monsters and how we see them. And really, in a way, it is super, super comparable to racism or to the way we perceive other people, other races, other cultures. We've sort of had this fear of other cultures ingrained in us. The media for the last 15 years, give or take, more probably, have been showing us Muslims as the, terrorists, as the bad guys. So now whenever we see someone with this, with the head covering or the hijab or the niqab or the burqa, there's this sort of immediate, okay, this fear. And of course, we like to think that we're more evolved and we get over it. But this otherness about them is what we recognize and makes us afraid of them. And now, with all the Black Lives Matter and everything that's been happening over the last few months, it's sort of interesting to have that put a little bit more into our face of how the way we see others or the other is often vilifying them instinctively and then sort of changing our mindset or, controlling our automatic reaction rather than the other way around of, oh, they're just, they're people like you and me, and then they do something bad and then they're vilified.
Yeah, so did you come up with this idea, or did Kevin help with it, or?
It was Kevin's idea.
Oh, the whole thing was your idea, Kevin.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about the monsters in your world that you sort of portray as not the villains, but just, main characters or even heroes or protagonists.
Okay, so I approach it in a little bit odd of a way, I think, because on the one hand, I have a race of orcs. They are, in fact, the villains of this story, but they're also individuals. They're not just these mindless beasts that get destroyed in waves by the heroes. They have their own thoughts, their own motivations. They have their own society, their own culture, their own unique way of looking at things. And there's some things that I tied into it from start to finish for the main orc character, who is a point of view character in the book. And there's just a lot of things that end up tying together by the end that really show you that he's this complex, very human type of character who doesn't necessarily agree with everything he's supposed to be doing. And that's been sort of my whole approach to all of it from the beginning is, yes, even though they're typically portrayed as this villainous race, there are going to be those who are villains. There are going to be those who are not. There needs to be individuality within the species.
Yes,
that's a big thing for me.
So what is this race again? Is it orcs?
Yes, it's my own version of orcs. I haven't explained a whole lot about exactly what they are yet, but there's a lot coming.
Are they naturally inclined to being more aggressive?
They are.
Like Russians? No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. I can say it because we have one in the family. But
there's a lot of background and history behind why they are what they are. In some ways, they were pushed into it historically, and it's just sort of become a part of their culture.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking World of Warcraft orcs. There's a side story where it's he's half orc and half human, or he might just be full orc, but he became an intellectual, and he was ousted from the clan because they were like, "Me no like smart man," but he could have like saved the whole clan. I'm not the best at WoW lore, But that's kind of that's where the question came from, because they're all like just innately freaking mean, like cavemen. But that's not this case. That's like the society has crafted them, molded them to this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a natural aggression, there's a natural brutality, but they also have a sensitive side. They have a human side, and a lot of it ends up being that they're essentially controlled by someone else, and they're doing what they have to do to survive, and that's a lot of it.
Not like a hive, but like a okay, like a ruler. Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just interrogating you on this class.
No, you're totally good.
You're gonna know this species really well by the end of this, I promise.
Hey, I already do, so it's all good.
I have a question about the race, because I love talking about this stuff. Are they? Can they be really intelligent?
Oh yeah, some of them
so they have
extremely intelligent.
Okay. When we first brought up this talk, seeing the other for who they truly are, I was thinking more of an individual kind of way. So, you had a friend who you thought was one person, but turned out to be another. And man, talk about experiences with that. I've got some. Most recently, whenever I stopped drinking so much, the people who you thought were your friends just kind of fell off like flies. And, and it's stuff like that. Like, I have a pretty severe case that just recently happened, but he's also 45. And it was just a shock to see who he truly was. Someone who lied a lot, so well that you just never thought he lied ever. But is that kind of this where is that in the scope of things what we're talking about today?
It's not at all, but it was an interesting little diversion.
Okay. Well, when I say seeing the other for who they truly are, that's
no. So the idea is this concept of the other, right? Somebody who is different than us, right?
Okay.
Men looking at women, or the other genders, right? The non-binary. Caucasians looking at non-Caucasians, all of the many different cultures out there, right? And instinctively seeing this version of the other that we don't identify with, and so in a way we sort of alienate them instinctively. So it's humans are pack creatures, pack animals, 100%, right? It's all about the herd. So it's why we form cities. Initially it was for protection, but then eventually, it became much more than that. And so whenever we see people that we recognize, with recognizable traits, then we immediately bond with them. Like, you see my beard and you're like, man, I just want to be near him all the time.
Every day.
Exactly. And when I see your hair, I'm like, oh yeah, this is exactly how I used to look a few years ago.
You did. I found a picture of you.
Yeah. But so we identify with each other. Now, if let's say you were African-American, there would be one less connection that we had. So you'd still see my beard and think it's awesome, and I'd still see your hair and think it's awesome. But then the color of our skin is just different enough that there wouldn't be sort of that instinctive connection that we had. Right. And then change your gender. Right. And then change your sexuality to something that I have a harder time wrapping my head around. And then change the language that you speak. And then change the location where you live. And all of these things make you more and more of this other. Until sort of like you take humans, we can get along. You change your race, or what was it? Yeah, I guess your race to orc. All of a sudden, you are this foreign creature that I cannot possibly hope to understand. So immediately, when I see sharp teeth, which is immediately relegated to predator in my mind, like all predators have sharp teeth, and then I see I hear the stories about all the bad stuff that orcs have done to my ancestors or my friends or the other village, you are immediately changed to bad guy status. And so when I see you, you may be the Stevie, exactly who you are in every way, except you're an orc. And I have this immediate bias against orcs. And that's exactly what happens in our lives with people of different races, different culture, and all of that. So it's interesting to sort of bring that up and examine it. I love how Kevin was saying he sort of does it through the lens of his story, through orcs, but it's incredibly, incredibly relevant to what's going on right now.
Definitely. Yeah. It's now that I get it, it really reminds me of Ender's Game.
Okay, yeah. So sort of how Not Ender's Game, because Ender's Game is just the whole training thing. But like in the later stories,
That's
where
what I
he's
meant,
actually
yeah.
on the planet and he
Mhm.
talks to their xenomorphs, I think they're called,
Xenomorphs.
or something. Anyways, he talks to these alien creatures, and he finds out that they are afraid of humans because the humans are attacking and killing them, just like the humans are afraid of these aliens. And it just sort of puts things into perspective. Another really, really good example of this is the Draconians from the Dragonlance series. That's probably one of the first that I'd ever been exposed to, because when you read about the Draconians from the perspective of the humans, the Draconians are things that they're afraid of, right? They're the dragon spawn that are super tough warriors, and they're attacking and they're killing the armies and they can't defeat them. And then you read from the Draconians' perspective, and you see that they're just like a tribe of people who are, warriors, right? They're magically created, but they're protecting their women and their young. And the humans are the aggressors. And so it shifts that perspective in a really interesting way. And, you read it when you're young and you're like, whoa, these are really cool creatures. But then when you think about it as an adult, with a little bit more rationale, you can think changing this perspective and seeing people through a different lens, real people, could totally change things. Yes, thank you, Vernon. The Formics. That was the name they were given.
The Formics?
Yeah. A comment from Rashun, very appropriate. We look for the thing that's different in others. We tend to join the group that is the most familiar with us. Things being different is scary for humans because we're always afraid of the unknown. And that is 100% accurate.
Jesus, Rashawn. Wow. Dude, when's that book gonna release? Wow, that was awesome. We need to have Rashawn. I don't even know what Rashawn looks like. I know that's weird. Like I've known him for what now, 2 years, Andy?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have him on one day when he gets his.
It looks awesome. We'll just leave it at that.
He does. I bet he does. Awesome. Well, Kevin, the protagonist in your story, is he an orc?
See, I have multiple protagonists in that particular book, and there's a couple on the human side, and there's one on the orc side, and one of them's a dragon. So it's for me, it was just this mishmash of different things to all bring together, have it all clash, and just see how it all comes out.
And we don't know that other person is a dragon.
It's hinted, but it's not given away until the end.
Does he hide it from other people?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so if they'd known he was a dragon, they would treat him differently.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm trying to wrap my head around. Is it like a werewolf thing where he just like becomes a dragon?
No, it's nothing like that. It's not like a whole shifter thing. He just has access to magic that allows him to transform.
Oh, okay. So now we know that there's the difference in races. Is there in this series that you wrote, is there magic?
Oh, yes.
Do we treat people who can channel magic differently?
In the main nation where the first book takes place, magic is outlawed.
Okay.
People who can use it tend to be executed.
Oh, are you just born with it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we kind of know where we've have some of that in our history. So these poor people are just born with it, and then they just get executed.
Yeah, there's again, this is another matter where there's this long history of things that have happened in the past that have led to this extreme attitude about it.
Wow. And do you have like people in your books that just hide it like really well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm
thinking of the story of Moses where the mom, puts it in a basket. The baby in the basket, it. And just, I thought that would be a cool part. That's what I'm thinking when we're talking about your story. Mm-hmm. That sounds like a major plot point.
It is.
Is one of your protagonists one of those people hiding their magic?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. I have to. Can we just know a little bit about the whole series? Because I'm just like kind of picking apart at pieces, trying to wrap my head around it, and then I just should have asked this in the first place.
Absolutely. Any specific questions, or do you just want a broad overview?
Man, I know it's the hardest question to ask another author is like, what's your book about? You're like, well, let me just get the manual out. Yeah. No, well, just kind of like I know it's going to be a lot more difficult because you have multiple characters, but like the Lord of the Rings, let's get the ring to Mordor kind of thing, you know?
Okay.
I know that's difficult. You don't have to if you don't know.
No, you're good. It just requires a little bit of explanation because I have two separate series that tie in together.
Okay.
One of them.
Our viewers like to go and buy the books usually afterwards.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to spoil anything.
Okay, cool.
There might be one minor spoil, but it's not anything that's going to be a huge issue. Because I'm not going to name names. Okay, so in the first series, it's set in future post-apocalyptic Earth where dragons rise up and take over the planet. And then there's a lot that goes on. We end up with a group of extremely large, extremely powerful dragon overlords that basically control everything. And some things go on where one of them ends up being challenged and defeated and literally forced off the planet. He uses his magical capabilities to literally travel through space and eventually lands himself on this other world, which is where the second series takes place.
Okay, yeah, I could see why you would say it was complicated.
Yeah.
You know, this whole idea, and I'm sorry my camera's blurry. I don't know why. This is a new $300 camera, and it's just there it is. I'm shooting in 4K right now.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, well, it's so dumb. It should work all the time for that amount of money, which I got just for the Fantasy Fiends show, by the way. I'll give you my PayPal link later, Andy, so you can pay for it. No.
Totally.
So this idea immediately it reminds me of the Gundam Wing series. You know,
Not familiar.
Oh man, to me it's a very difficult series to get in. Like if someone says, "Hey, I want to get into mechs," or even I want to get into anime, I would never suggest Gundams because it's complex because there's no good side. They're both good. Kind of like Command and Conqueror,
yeah.
That video game. Mm-hmm. I think that's more defined who the bad guys are. But Gundams, you have, it depends on the series, but they both have good people in them. That's kind of what I'm thinking with your story.
To a certain extent.
They're battling each other. So it's like two groups fighting, for colonies in space.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing about the series is for a good chunk of it, not all of it, but a good chunk of it, there's a clearly defined villain. This is the bad guy. He wants to do these bad things. Okay. And there are these other morally gray people who are doing what they feel is necessary to defeat that evil. So, I mean, there is a certain ambiguity to it, but for most of it, it's pretty clear who the ultimate villain is supposed to be.
We had a very good show about do the means...
ends justify the means.
Yeah, do the ends justify the means? Mm-hmm. So these heroes, I'm going to call them heroes, fighting against the bad guy, they will do darker things in order to win.
Oh yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Kind of like, are they anti-heroes, you would say, or?
Okay, so the main one in the first series, he begins very, very heroic, very idealistic, and he's on a downward slide where he's just doing worse and worse things and justifying it because these other even worse things are going to happen if he doesn't. And eventually the whole thing's going to kind of blow up in his face. But I don't want to say too much more than that.
Yeah.
Spoil things.
And if this is a spoiler, what does the villain want? World domination.
A lot of it comes down to personal power. Is the big overlord dragons, and I sort of borrowed a concept from Dragonlance for this. So if you're familiar with that series, you'll see where this is coming from. Essentially, at one point, in between a couple of dragon wars that happen post-apocalypse, there's a power that's discovered which basically allows them to leech the life force of another dragon, which thereby enhances their own magical abilities, which furthermore increases their size after the fact. So a lot of it turns into this big free-for-all who can collect the most power. And the whole thing has the additional side effect of corruption. And there's an addiction that comes with it, where the more they have, the more they want.
Oh, I really like that. I wanted to write a story somewhat similar. Well, not similar at all. It has to do with drug addiction, but
I wanted to write something, the same, but like totally different and not at all related. Yeah.
Sure. Makes sense to me.
I was in the kitchen. I was like, I had a joke, but it was going to compare Lisa to a dog. And I said, Lisa, I'm not comparing you to a dog, but I'm about to. And
I'm sure that went over well.
I get the face, and then I might get an FU, a quick FU real quick.
This is love, really.
Yeah, she'll do this blinking thing like this, like, are you ready to apologize? So I just kind of go, I'm sorry.
We should have her on the podcast one of these days.
That would be hilarious. She's so shy, though. She could tell you about all her murder. Like, I come home today and she's watching murder and abduction, and I was like, boy, oh boy, this is a dark.
It's research.
She's all cheerful. Oh Jesus! Oh my God. So I wanted to say one more thing about seeing the other for who they truly are. I studied this, and I think sociology, that it's the intelligent people who can relate more to these people. They can see just outside of themselves and put themselves in another person's shoes. It's the intelligent people, but the people who are intelligent enough to actually step out and become more aware, they're the minority. And so we have a majority that is just constantly like, you're different than me. What are you doing in my neck of the woods? Kind of thing. No.
Yeah, you get a lot of those people who are comfortable in their own little circle, and then there comes this newness, right? This otherness, and it terrifies them because, like Rashun said, the unfamiliar and unknown can be terrifying to our primitive human brains. So that's why we end up with this instinctive fear or instinctive antipathy towards these things that have the otherness. But like, that's a mentality that needs to change. We need to stop seeing people with this way. We gotta change our minds so that the first instinctive thought that we have about people, whether it's African Americans, whether it's about Muslims, whether it's about people who speak a different language, whether it's about, whatever it is, stop seeing them with antipathy as our instinctive reaction, and see them with the eyes of, okay, they are simply another variation of ourselves as human, and they're identical to us in all the ways that matter.
See, for me, it all comes down to empathy and compassion.
No. I agree. It was an inside thing with Andy and I.
It was?
It should have been. I thought I was inside you. I don't know.
Whoa.
33 minutes, Stevie. 33 minutes it took you to make this weird.
I'm getting older, getting more mature,
I feel like that's some kind of record.
It's the longest it's ever been.
I was pumping gas, and there's this song called I Like Your Booty, But I'm Not Gay. Go look it up. It's so stupid. If you know Aqua Teen Hunger Force, it was on their soundtrack for the movie. But I was singing it with my headphones on. I was pumping gas, but I changed the lyrics. I'm like, I like your booty, but I am gay. And I look, because you can see through the gas thing, and I just see this Mexican dude just staring at me. Ooh, no, I'm not joking. He heard me. He had to, because I was being loud.
Yeah.
So I realized I need to grow up. Yeah,
definitely.
I did scare some Mexican ladies too, but I won't bore you guys with that. Awesome. At a Quiznos. I asked them if I could buy a shirt from them, and they're like, "No, it's my shirt. It's mine. If you have it, I won't have it." And I'm like, "No, that's not what I mean." So she just looked scared, so I just left. Buy her shirt. I thought that was the funniest thing. Real quick before we get into the reading, Kevin, Andy, stop taking us up on these freaking tangents. Kevin, your the map behind you, is that from this story?
No, it's not.
Okay. What is it?
That is a map of Westeros from Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay. I was gonna guess Africa, but
Stevie, how did you not recognize it? I totally immediately recognized it and didn't have to ask the same question before the podcast started.
Yeah, totally.
I couldn't watch Game of Thrones. It was too much for me.
Wait, really?
Yeah, as soon as I got to the Red Wedding, I was done. I was like, nope, I'm done. I give up. Seriously, I'm still scarred from that. I'm done. And every time I tell that to someone, like, oh, just wait till you get to this part. I'm like, I don't want to get to that part.
No, that's actually okay, because having gone to the Red Wedding, you've seen most of the good show.
Yes. And
I mean,
beautiful stuff, but
yeah, I mean, the first 6 seasons, in my opinion, amazing. Just, after that, not as good.
I read the first book, and I actually preferred it to the season 1, but that's only because, man, it's pretty exact. But the way they do Cal Mordo, the strong guy, he's played by Jason Momoa.
Oh, Khal Drogo.
Khal Drogo. Okay.
Khal Drogo. He's like, she and him. She actually likes him whenever they have sex for the first time. So she's enjoying it. But in the movie, it's like in the show, it's like sad and scary. But in the book, I'm like, oh, okay, that's nice. And I can't help but knowing that I'm reading a 65-year-old's like thoughts. I was like, geez, he wrote this.
Stevie thought Game of Thrones was a romance.
Oh God. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but we should get into the reading. Kevin, you're a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, where'd you get that shirt? Do you even remember?
Oh, you're asking me to go way back in time.
It looks new.
Yeah, I've had this thing for at least probably 5 years, maybe longer.
Oh, wow. The cartoon's pretty cool, by the way. It's more of an anime style now.
Is it?
Yeah, with like Dragon Ball Z fight scenes. It's pretty interesting. I say people should give it a shot. But all right, so we're doing this new thing called preparation, not preparation H. Andy, you think that's stupid? I have a C in my book called hepatitis C. Get it? Because like it's a C.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I feel like when people who are 50 and above read it, they're like, "What the hell is this? Why did he do this?" But I thought it was funny. The editor actually told me to take that out. True story. And once she told me to take it out, I was like, "No, it's staying in."
That's when he knew he had to keep it in.
I had to keep it in
classic Stevie fashion.
Yeah. I just don't like being told no, which sounds wrong.
Childish.
Yeah, it sounds childish, but when it comes to my story. Okay, I'm just going to end it there.
Definitely. All right, so the scene from tonight has 3 characters. We've got Talizamon, who is a female and who will be read by Kevin. We've got Gondon and Dargon, who will be read by me, and Stevie will be narrating.
Okay, so it's Talisman?
Talizamon. Notice how I made sure to pronounce it for your benefit. That is literally the only reason that I just gave that explanation.
It's hard. I had Japanese class today. I am in the eastern part of the world today, people. By the way, Rebecca and Regine. I'm sorry, Regine. I used your dictionary today again. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But Talizamon sounds like a Digimon. Okay, I'm ready. That's all I wanted to say.
Take it away, Stevie.
Are you ready? Andy, give me a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Beep. Talizamon gaped.
What are you doing here?
Condon smiled.
Surely you didn't think Jory orchestrated all this on his own?
Dargan stepped forward.
You're just another greedy bastard on the council. Why should I believe a word that comes from your mouth?
Gondon's smile turned sad as he looked to Dargan.
I am so much more than that, dear friend. I tried to tell you. I don't believe you. Just like the others, you're full of empty, meaningless promises.
Talizaman turned her gap-jawed, wide-eyed gaze on Dargan. Gondon sighed.
Please, your highness, let us not talk ourselves in circles. Not right now, at least, when your city needs you so much.
Talizaman couldn't help the smile that split her face. At times like this, she truly appreciated Gondon's directness. Dargan's jaw clenched.
What do you mean?
The councilman pointed through a gap in the trees. Dargan turned a moment before Talizaman did, and the sound he made was unlike anything she had ever associated with him. Something between a gasp, a whine, a growl, and a cry.
Travandor, preserve us,
she said as she processed what she was seeing out there. Fires, dozens of them, all the way around the city. Unless she was mistaken, it was the farms around Moritz. Quite possibly all of them.
And here you sit, doing nothing,
Dargan said coldly.
What was I to do?
Gondon said, his voice just as cold as he stood stiffly.
I am no commander, and these soldiers would not listen to me even if I were. They insisted on waiting for you. The Feather Commander was adamant on that point. You need to be the one to lead them.
A touch of color returned to Dargan's pale cheeks.
Where are they?
The councilman looked to a low, rocky rise just behind him. Over that hill.
It's me.
Oh,
Over that hill. I suggest you hurry. The attack hasn't been on for long, but I suspect it won't take long if the city doesn't receive some assistance.
Dargan darted toward the rise before the councilman finished speaking. She made to follow him, but Gondon moved to block her way.
Please, there is another task for you. Quite different, but every bit as vital, I fear.
And what is that?
She asked, narrowing her eyes in suspicion. She still didn't know who or what he truly was. He was clearly far more than just a man of the king's council. But more importantly, she wasn't certain which side he fought for it. He offered a wan smile, looking apologetic.
Please, just come with me. This is something only you can do. Do not worry, I am on your side. I want to save Dargon and Moritz as much as you do.
In spite of every instinct in her body screaming that this was a trap and she should stay with Dargan, something in the man's manner made her want to trust him. She sighed.
Okay.
The councilman turned to move through the trees into an overgrown thicket. She supposed a quarter turn had passed when he stopped. She found herself in a much wider clearing than the one Dargan and the others had used as a camp while she and Rentalis worked in the city. What was this place? At least 100 spans across. Surely it couldn't have been here when they'd arrived at the city. They would have seen it, wouldn't they? She stopped, planting her fists on her hips and glaring at the councilman.
What is this about, Gondon? If this is some trick, by the 9 hells, you're going to regret it.
Gondon shook his head slowly.
This is no trick, Talisman. It may have once been, but no longer. I can no longer fight the reality that my former masters are wrong, and your people will need my help.
Talisman's jaw fell open. Was he saying what it sounded like? Had he once worked for the Trevon, but was now changing sides? Could he even be trusted? One corner of his mouth quirked upward in a crooked smile.
It isn't what you think, Talisman. Not nearly what you think.
Well, what is it then?
He offered a full, broad smile now.
It is better if I show you. You would never believe it if I simply said it. You must see for yourself.
She opened her mouth for a caustic comment about him being cryptic, but he turned away from her, and his richly embroidered purple robes fell to the grassy, leaf-strewn ground. Her eyes widened. What in the hells was he doing? Stark naked, he stopped in the center of the clearing and raised his arms to his sides and tilted his head back. She was struck by how muscular his form was. Through his robes, he had always looked a little pudgy and pot-bellied, but devoid of clothing. She saw every muscle in his body was strong and well-defined, his body almost devoid of fat or flab. She found herself admiring the shape of those muscles in his back and arms for an instant before she stopped herself. This man could very easily still be an enemy. Gondon's body relaxed, his musculature becoming less visible, then began to glow, softly at first, then brighter. His pale flesh took on a vaguely violet hue and pulsed with violet light. He seemed to be growing. She thought for certain she must be losing her mind, but after a few moments, she could no longer deny it. Was he a sorcerer? What was going on? What was he doing? What was he? His back arched and he reached his arms down, which now seemed to be disproportionately muscular, and his elbows faced the wrong direction. The slight purple hue of his flesh deepened, and first dozens, then hundreds of cracking sounds reached her in rapid succession. It seemed to her almost as though she was at table listening to the whole table cracking chicken bones one after another in long succession. The body, she could no longer consider him a man, fell forward, his legs now as misshapen as his arms. A small appendage sprouted from his backside like a tiny tail. His neck and head elongated, his face emerging from his head as though it were a snout. He turned, shaking his head as an animal might. He smiled, revealing a huge mouth full of long, sharp teeth. Small, bony nubs sprouted from what had once been his forehead and grew into long, graceful, curving horns. He opened his mouth and screamed, an agonized sound which rapidly transformed into an animalistic roar. His hands and feet elongated and thickened, becoming four-fingered claws with razor-sharp talons. The lithe, hairless wolf, not an accurate description, but the best one she had, stared at her with glowing eyes. What would normally be the whites were solid, deep amethyst, and inside there was no iris, only a deep aquamarine vertically slit pupil. The form continued to grow larger, longer, and taller, the neck and tail growing disproportionately longer all the while, and the purple color of its flesh deepened with each passing moment. Long, bony spikes sprouted from the joints of the creature's spine, and deep, dark purple scales emerged from slashes they made in the flesh, spilling deep purple blood down the creature's hide. Then the changes stopped. Before her stood an immense four-legged creature, easily 40 spans long, including the tail. Deep purple scales covered its flesh, and the head was almost snake-like. Seemingly from nowhere, wings lifted from the body, glistening and leathery. They flapped, blowing a cool breeze in her face. Oh gods, she thought. It's some strange new form of Torthugra. She drew her sword. Keep going.
Almost done, yeah.
Okay. Quill immediately pulled his wings in and dropped to the lower joints of his legs, lowering his head to the ground.
Please,
he said, forcing as much of the rumble from his voice as he could.
I mean no harm. I want to help you. I am not what was that word? Torthugra. My people are called dragons.
He scanned her mind for an image to go with the name she had thought, then added silently,
Not entirely, at least.
Talizamon's jaw hung open, her eyes wide. He refrained from smiling while he let her work through a shock. Her jaw worked as though trying to speak, but no sound came. Quill, uncertain which of the dozens of responses in her mind she was trying to articulate, made himself resist the urge to knead the soil with his claws while he waited. She tried several more times over a minute or two with no better success. Her sword shook in her loose grip for a moment longer. Then she tightened it, her knuckles turning white.
What are you?
She asked, her voice a breathy rasp. Though it sounded rusty and dry, her voice had a much more musical quality than he had noticed in his human form. Quill snorted a frustrated breath, the air streaming as it exited his wide nostrils.
I am the one you have known as Gondon. I was never false with you, but for the nature of my kind, and where my true loyalties were.
Were?
She asked, as suspicious as ever. He forced back the smile fighting to form on his lips. The toothy expression was not likely to be correctly understood, but this was what he liked about her. While others might focus on what his past loyalties had been, or accuse him of accuse him of continuing to hold to them, she picked up on the past tense of his statement and questioned whether it was an intentional slip. She caught the subtleties he had never expected any human to see.
Yes, Talizamon. I told you before, things have changed.
Why?
He sighed. The eternal question, the very one he had been battling with almost since meeting her.
How can I explain this? Prior to meeting you, my interactions with humans had only served to reinforce my master's opinion that you were all weak, of low intelligence, greedy, selfish, and generally destructive in every sense of the word, but most especially toward yourselves. It is his belief that conquering and ruling over you is in your best interests, that you do not deserve the right to choose your own paths.
Awfully convenient.
She muttered.
And what changed?
Quill laid his head down on his front claws and looked up at her.
You showed me the other side of humanity. You have shown me humans who are wise, intelligent, selfless, honorable, just, righteous, peaceful, and peace-loving, and, most importantly, altruistic. You've shown me there are humans who legitimately want to make your world a better place, a place of peace and freedom. And while my master's reign would eventually bring peace, it would never bring freedom. Not in 10,000 years would you see freedom.
Over the course of his speech, Quill watched her face shift from complete suspicion to something resembling neutrality, then optimism. Her lips now curled in the slightest ghost of a smile. His heart soared. Though her eyes still held caution, she slowly sheathed her sword.
But you still haven't answered my questions. Not truly. What are you really?
He gave a slight nod.
I suppose that is so. My true name is Quillayaran.
Her face twisted into a confused expression.
You may call me Quill.
Her expression cleared.
And as to what I am, my species is not native to your world. We have been here only a few hundred years. We call ourselves dragons.
Dragons?
She said slowly, seeming to enjoy the way the unfamiliar word rolled off her tongue.
How can it be that you have only been here a few centuries? Where did you come from?
End of reading.
Wow, that transition scene was really nice. That was awesome.
That was intense.
Yeah. Poor guy. He's got to go through that crap every time. Man, that sucks for him. But are they like that kneading part was funny? Are they like cats?
Well, sort of in a way.
In a way.
I mean, I've always felt that a dragon would be at least somewhat animalistic. You know, they're not going to be completely civilized and human-like. That's not where they came from. You know, and that's something that a lot of different kinds of animals do, and it just seemed like a nice little characterization touch to add in there.
I really liked it. It worked. For me, it worked. I thought it was funny. Especially since he was a human and now he's a dragon needing or wanting to need. I like that. That was one of my favorite parts. And Andy, that voice is probably one of my favorites that you've ever done.
Thank you. It really nearly ruined my throat.
Really, it sounded effortless. I liked it.
It was impressive. I'll give you that.
I was thinking of doing like the full-on growl, which I have perfected over the years, but I would never be able to sustain that for more than like 1 or 2 paragraphs without just totally destroying my vocal cords.
Yeah, Rashawn, man, Kevin is the dragon man. You should link up with Kevin on Facebook and talk some dragon transformation stuff. I've never had a dragon in any of my books. Andy, you?
Not yet.
Wasn't there that?
I'll leave that out there.
No, I discussed with you about a dragon. It was we had a character development talk, just him and I was asking him how long should I have a character in a book that we care about and then kill him off? Is it killing him off too soon? It was about a dragon. It was like a year ago. I don't remember. That was the only time. But Kevin, I have to ask you real quick, and I should be asking this to everybody. Are your books on Audible?
I have one that's recently released on Audible. Okay, technically there's another one, but that's a novella, which was the first thing I ever published. Please don't read it. Every other version of it has been removed from sale because it's actually going to be rewritten, and it's going to be the final volume in the first series once I get it to where I want it to be. I do have plans to get the rest of the books on Audible. It's a work in progress.
Awesome. Yeah, we just have some people that like to only get it from Audible, but I actually have someone else right now who wants me to put more of my stuff on Audible, but it just takes time. I get it. Oh, Andy, you want to ask your question?
Oh, yes. Well, are we done for the evening?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So, Kevin, before we sign off for the last few weeks, we introduced this new thing, and it's this question that we ask all of our guests on the fly, improvise, get ready. The question is, what do you think are 2 vital habits or traits for a successful human being? Not a successful writer, but a successful human being.
Wow. For a successful human being. Can I say intelligence? Does that work?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. We haven't had that one yet.
So, I'm going to go with intelligence and work ethic.
Work ethic.
I like it.
Interesting. So kind of like contributing to society.
Or just contributing to your own wallet. I mean, either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, a smart person who doesn't like put in the effort is never going to get anywhere.
Exactly.
Wow, the work ethic one, I was shocked. We've had some really good ones. I thought sense of humor was cool. Andy, I like that you have the same question so we can compare. I thought you were going to change it every week, but I
nope.
like this way.
Same question every week.
I like it. It's a good idea because everyone's been so different, and I'm asking this question to people in my life, and it's always different, and I love it. Lisa's dad is a zoologist, and he answered in a completely different way than I thought. I thought it was going to be more like animalistic, primal, like sex and hunting, and it was really thoughtful. And I'll shut up. But when I ask this question, even to people who don't really care for that kind of stuff, they always take time to answer it, and I think it's interesting. So
that's cool.
I'm like a child. I just see beauty in everything.
Yeah,
sunsets and rainbows.
A question from the audience for you, Kevin. How many different types of dragons do you have, and do you have like the classic dragons?
I have a lot of different kinds. Last time I counted, I think I have, I don't know, probably 20 different breeds, honestly. And I do use sort of some of the classic like D&D style dragons, but I've made some changes. I never really liked the organization of it, where, all chromatic dragons are evil, all metallic dragons are good, and all this. It just never really rang true for me. And I always thought that referring to a dragon as black or red or whatever is silly. I mean, it's a color. It's not the name of the breed.
I got you. Yeah.
So it's a little different. Basically, what you would know as a chromatic dragon, I call stone dragons, and they're all named after a type of base stone that resembles the look of their scales.
Interesting.
Awesome, man. Great question. I totally forgot that people do the green dragon, red dragon, blue dragon. Does the water, like Saphira? Remember Saphira?
Yep.
That was my first dragon crush. We've all had our dragon crushes, right? I was a very lonely child. I'm an only born. I'm a C-section. Just give me a break. Doesn't even make sense. Okay, Kevin, where can people find you, my brother?
Let's see. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or my website is kevinpotterauthor.com.
Nice.
Very
And
cool.
if you wanted to tell someone where to start with your books, where would they start? What book?
That's going to be the first book of the first series, which is called Dawn of the Overlords. And there's also a background story that happens before that you can get by joining my mailing list.
Very nice. Yeah. And just go check out the covers too. I'm a cover snob. I pick books out just by the cover. I know it's stupid, but I do it. We all do it. All right. Andy, want to talk about Deranged and Questing for Monday?
Absolutely. Yeah. Deranged and Questing returns on Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific time with our favorite guest, Bobby himself. I have no idea who he's going to play, but it's going to be absolutely hilarious. And we are sneaking into the camp, or we are currently observing the camp of the third party of pixies that's been stirring up trouble. And there's this weird, I think it was gray looking pixie thing, like a monster boss. It's the bad guy that we're going to defeat. It's going to be awesome. So join us on Twitch. Just look for my name, Andy Peliquin, on Twitch for an excellent episode of Deranged and Questing on Monday.
Yeah, go check out my episode. It was last week, and I genuinely had no idea what was going on, just like the main character. And they don't really tell you, so you play the part exactly how it should be played, because you don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
But okay. Thank you very much for tuning in to Toonami on Saturday, 9 p.m. Central Standard. Toonami was amazing. I love Toonami. Hey everyone, it's Toonami Guy here. Okay, I'll shut up. Okay, guys, I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful day. Kevin, thank you for coming on the air. I was going to say show up. Thank you for showing up. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. It's been great.
Awesome. Well, guys, remember Monday, Deranged and Questing, and Thursday, another awesome episode of the Fantasy Fiend Show. We will see you next time. Bye.
Good night.